I have been working on this for a little while and just wanted to share it with you. This is some things that go into planning a set list. It honestly, it can be any kind of set list, at least the general idea of all of these things, but I'm specifically talking about a worship playlist or worship order, however you want to say that. Here are the four words that I use: theme, function, repertoire, and set list flow are kind of the words that I'll be using. I'm gonna go through these real quick, and I think you'll get the idea about these parameters that kind of help me plan. First thing that I do is theme. Is there a stated theme or is it an inferred theme? Stated meaning like sometimes they literally will tell you a scripture or a word that can be this summer. A word is covered, and that's one of our themes. Or sometimes it's just inferred. Maybe it's something that you're planning, or you just in general sing about Jesus, and then you pick up on maybe one type of theme that you just want to go with. Spend time with those people that are developing theme. This is a big step. If it's a pastor or if it's this summer, I've got two different committees that have been working toward the overall message that they want to communicate. I've got to be able to listen, spend time, random phone calls, even text messages to kind of get an idea if they'll spill out anything that they've been working through. If there's curriculum, go ahead and kind of peek through that, looking for buzzwords, looking for anything that can kind of help you um, um, give yourself some curbs of songs to pick, and I think even things to say in between songs. Study and pray through the key verse. That right there will, in and of itself, will a lot of times just bring things because then you're gonna say, "Oh, I feel like that this is where God is even moving in my heart." That's always amazing to see how God uses that. The next thing that I say, this might come first, but usually for me it comes second after I think about the theme, the function of things, and these are just a sampling of I have right there on my on my website. There's a Google Forms document that I have for people that ask all of these questions, so I can get them in one place. And if either I'm asking or they fill it out, it's things like is this going to be a band or an acoustic set? Because it's gonna be in the thinking of how to build up for this and the planning for this. There's some songs that may work for one and not the other. What's the target audience like? Is it men or women? And that's gonna dictate your keys, and that also might dictate who you bring, the age of the people. Are we doing the kids thing here? Is this a seniors thing? What are the age of the people and the maturity? I kind of mean spiritual maturity level. In my questionnaire, I ask what percentage of the people will be saved and lost, just to try to get that on the table. That way, I'll understand very clearly. If they say 80% of the people that don't know the Lord, then I know that my set list and communication overall is not really going to be leading worship. It is some, but it's about communicating a message of the gospel, or again staying within the theme, but it's going to be a communicate. My expectations are going to be different. Is there a PA? There's a sound system, and it could, because that's gonna might that might if I know that there's not a sound system at all and there's not expected to be one there, or if there is, it's a tiny one, that might change what I play or what I don't play. If I have to, if I have to project, there are some songs that just aren't going to come out right if I try to sing low, or I don't know, big octave jumps or something like that. What's the room like? Is it a real quiet, still room? Is it a real active room? How long do you want the set to be? Because that's gonna be or how many of them are there? That's a big question that you want answered, so that you have an idea about, well, then if I've got five sets that I'm going to be doing throughout the course of the weekend, then I can teach a couple of new songs, and they can latch on to those. And lyric display, when people are looking at me, if the expectation for them is to sing, as in leading worship, then are they going to be seeing these words? Like, because if they're not going to see the words, then I'm going to do simple songs with high repetition, and I'm going to probably lean toward very familiar, like Amazing Grace, kind of familiar. And if they're going to be printed, then I may just need to know that. I want to envision them looking down at their papers or their books. If it's going to be projected, then that does bring on a whole different set of tech questions. But in the purview of designing a set list, that's kind of more of a normal feel for me because people are going to be looking at me. I know that I'll be leading. I'll be in their view as they're looking at the screen. Trying to make this quick. The all the repertoire stuff is just basically saying somewhere in some way you've got to have a list of songs that you know somehow, not just an idea. I know songs because you never can think of songs when you want to. You got to have the list somewhere, and it's a list that you will scroll through up and down all the time. And these are songs, and in the whenever you're boiling it down to what you're going to sing, you got to think about what are songs that I know, not just songs that I've heard, but just songs that I know. What are songs that I think that they know? Sometimes I don't know for sure what's in their set. So I have to pick songs that I can kind of visualize. Maybe I know their youth minister, or maybe I know their pastor, another worship leader, or I don't know. I have to just say, well, these are songs that they probably know. There's some Hillsong, elevation worship, Jesus culture standards that maybe everyone's gonna know. Tomlin stuff that everyone's gonna have heard of, and I may have to just limit it to those. And it's a good thing then finally if they provide a list for you, and I have to ask usually, hey, do you have a list of songs that you regularly do? That way that I know that I have some familiar stuff that I'm at least looking at while I'm designing my set list. And finally, set list flow. And really, this is a way too complicated to talk about in something like this. But this is the part that goes into it. This down here is a link to a YouTube video that's just a gateway video into Tom Jackson. He's a live music producer, and he deals with audience psychology, and in a this is just on stage communication stuff is all it is. It's nothing weird. He's a believer, and so he works with all different kinds of music, and he talks about what you need to do to design a set list that allows people to be comfortable, that allows you to communicate the message that you want to say, and to make sure that you're landing where you want to land, that people are tracking with you. And these are all very specific skills to actually work on, not just to hope that they come out right, but to work on. And that's part of the set list planning, because you're going to ask yourself, how does the list communicate? In other words, am I asking people to listen to me? Because you might be. Am I asking people to be moved by the songs that I'm about to sing in terms of these are my songs and the message of the songs are so important? Or am I trying to get out of the way so they can listen to God and talk to and sing to Him? Is it bringing the audience where I want? And are the transitions distracting? Or the little things in between, like I may not want to do a key change right here because that abrupt communication static may actually kind of do the opposite I want it to do in the moment that it's doing that. But I may need it to. I may need a distracting, abrupt change, and that's the set list flow. So those are all the things that I think these four things at least are the key things that I use in planning a set list.